And being that political cool down is an outgrowth of coolest meditation ever, and we're all into the cosmic, we're talking today to Vedic astrologer Dennis Harness. Dennis Harness, PhD, is a professional Vedic astrologer and lecturer who received his doctorate degree in counseling psychology from California Institute of Integral Studies in San Francisco, California. For more than 30 years, Dennis has studied both Eastern and Western astrological techniques. You can learn more about Dennis's work at dennisharness.com. Let's welcome Dennis to the show.
Hey, buddy. How you doing? Boy, I'll tell you. Well, there's a perfect thing that happened with this whole delay.
Yeah.
One, it's a better chart, but two, I don't know if you heard on CNN, but they just did a report on Trump. It was, I think, in New York Times, it's coming out where Trump said, "I need the kind of generals that Hitler had."
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. And then also degrading a Mexican soldier who had died
Yeah.
and was unwilling to pay for the $60,000 for their funeral after he said that he would pay for it. He's like, it doesn't cost $60,000 to bury a effing Mexican. He didn't say effing.
No, she did though. The lady that Chicano woman on in CNN, she used the F-bomb just to make an impression. But John Kelly, also the chief of staff, the former chief of staff,
Yeah.
he came out with a bunch of comments too, just this afternoon. But whether it changes the needle or not is another question, because you got Trumpers or so whatever. But maybe some of the people that are in the middle may push them towards Kamala. You never know.
I sure hope so. You know, you keep expecting something big to break here, but it just seems to suffer from sort of like a paralysis, where it's just doesn't really seem to ever move forward in any way. But I think a lot of it's being suppressed by the media.
Let's take our friend Donald Trump, for example. In his chart with Western astrology, he is like 0 degrees Virgo rising. He's right there. Whereas in the Vedic chart, his rising sign comes back into Leo, the lion, very strongly, very strongly. And he has an incredibly strong chart. But just because something is incredibly strong doesn't mean it's incredibly good. For example, Hitler's chart is incredibly strong, but again, what he did, with our world was horrific. And we were just talking about it. There was just on CNN the whole comment that what was it that Trump made about that he had a lot of respect for the generals of of Hitler. So
because they were so obedient. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So they'll follow along. But anyway, I've done quite a bit of research on it because it's, to me, I'm biased. I'm a Kamala person for sure. I was born and raised Democrat. I went to Truman High School in Independence, Missouri, where Harry Truman's library is. And so I'm a diehard. I was born in Kansas City in the Midwestern. My wife calls me a Midwestern mystic. So again, I try to go for profound simplicity. There's so many Vedic astrologers that know all kinds of techniques that I don't work with. But at the end of the day, I know some basic things that I think are helpful. And sometimes, simplicity can how would we say, save the day, so to speak.
The KISS principle, yeah.
So anyway, I was, I don't know if I mentioned this last time we talked, and then we'll talk about Walz's chart. But the election day, November 5th, of course, coming in 2 weeks, really, to be honest, pardon my French, looks like a shitstorm. Now, granted, that may reflect that Kamala wins. And then, hell breaks loose, And again, I'm an optimist. I believe I have faith and optimism and hope. But as they say in Egypt, trust in God, but tie your camel to the post. We're going to go through probably a pretty turbulent time. And if Trump were to win, of course, we have to inherit the next 4 years of that debacle. So either way, we're kind of betwixt and between. I would say the main thing is that we need to write a new book instead of Eat, Pray, Love. It should be pray, love, eat. We need to have our priorities straight. So, but getting back to the election chart, one of the things, and I have a student who's a medical doctor and I tutor her, and we were discussing actually last night how if you look at the USA chart, the July 4th, 1776 chart, if you use that for in Philadelphia, if you use that for the chart, there is what's called a Pluto return. A Pluto return, and this is true in Western and Vedic astrology. One of the things that is common with both systems are what are called the transits and how they're moving through the zodiac. And so this conjunction of Pluto returning to its position at our country's birth only occurs once every 240, 250 years. So
Amazing.
not happens very often. And what is Pluto about? Pluto is about transformation. It's about death, rebirth. And again, hopefully this is a major time of big, huge shift in our culture. So I'm, again, like I said, I'm an optimist, hoping for the best. But anyway, there is that aspect. And then the other one is that this planet Pluto, where it's at on election day, is in opposition to Mars. And this is a very tight opposition to Mars. And what does all that mean? Again, it can indicate some potential for violence and things like that. So again, I don't want to continue to put out negative energy here, but I feel like I need to say what I'm seeing. I don't want to cheerlead people off a cliff and say it's all going to be love and light and Kamala wins and everything's good.
With the FEMA situation where Trump was spreading all that disinformation, we saw how dangerous that became, where there were militia troops hunting FEMA workers. And so we could see militia activity on election day for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out to your viewers that, again, good to tie your camel to the post, and maybe even good. I know it's a little paranoid, but maybe good to be a little bit outside of the urban areas around that week. That's coming up in 2 weeks, or just have a nice bomb shelter. No, I'm just teasing. Just have some.
Well, it's smart to have some fresh water on hand and some good food and stock up for. I don't think anything will last more than a couple days, but it's good to prepare like that.
Yeah. No, I think it's good to have some healthy skepticism about what could happen. And I think it's always good. Anyway, I've been telling my clients that for a number of years that live in the urban areas, that it's good to have a plan B, just good to have a place to go, and just in case, everything hits the proverbial fan.
Oh, you're pretty safe in Sedona there, and
Yeah,
we're out in Ventura, so quite a ways out of LA. So
I did look at Timothy Walz' chart, and what's interesting about his chart, which is really reflected also through Kamala's chart, is that they both have really good Venuses in their chart. And Venus is a planet of love and relationship. And whereas Trump, I think we talked about this last time, Trump has Venus with Saturn. And that necessarily doesn't mean a negative thing, although Saturn sitting on top of Venus can definitely indicate a person that may have more misogynist tendencies, may repress the feminine energy, may have a little bit of a heart that's shut down because Venus rules the heart chakra. And not only that, but in his Vedic chart, his Venus and Saturn fall into the 12th house, which is the house of loss and expenditure and challenges and imprisonment, even for that matter. 12 house.
oh, really? Wow.
And the interesting thing is that he just, on end of September, just went into a Venus subcycle in his Vedic chart. They're called dashas, or planetary periods, where a planet has a strong impact for a number of years. And this Venus cycle that he just went into at the end of September basically lasts for around 3 years. So the shadow side of that I often jokingly say, and hopefully I'm wrong around this joke, is I often say that who's going to be the next president of the United States is who has the worst chart the next 4 years. Because they're going to inherit, a lot of stuff going on this planet. But again, I'm an optimist. I think Kamala will get through, and she's got a much more, I think, positive chart as we move into this new era, hopefully, on in not only on planet Earth.
And you were saying on the last call too that the chart looks good for women's rising in power.
Because of his afflicted Venus, it could be women that actually bring him down, which is just common sense. If women, even Republican women, really get out and vote for Kamala, it may be the thing that tips the scales.
I think it will. We're seeing like incredible turnouts at her rallies, and there's probably 70% women.
And I think the cat ladies are gonna overrule Trump.
Yeah, and you've got Taylor Swift and
Yeah,
Billie Eilish, and yeah.
it's amazing to see, and so it's really cool to see people come together so strongly, and you see all the different signs of Kamala and Walz out there.
So you can see Liz Cheney out there with Kamala on the trail, and this is another woman power rising sign right there.
And they say that the most powerful of all the people on the campaign trail is Michelle Obama. That
Wow.
she has even more power and strength than Barack, because people just love her. And of course, she's again representing the strong, positive feminine energy that we have. I wish down the road she would run for president. Actually, I think she has some great qualities.
She keeps saying she doesn't want to, but it would be wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, or at least an ambassador or something, serve some function.
Mhm.
But getting back to Tim's chart, Walz's chart, his Venus, and we don't have a birth time, at least I haven't found a birth time. So if any of your viewers have come up with something, I'd be glad to hear it. I have his birth information as April 6, 1964 in West Point, Nebraska. But again, I just used a noon birth time. That day, his Venus is in the sign of Taurus, the bull, in Vedic astrology. And Taurus is the ruling sign for Venus. So he's got this, to me, a very dynamic Venus. And, Taurus is a fixed sign, so it doesn't give up, and it's very powerful. Again, Venus there. And it brings out some beauty and fun and humor and a lot of things that Venus is associated with, and love and heart, again. So again, I know I'm biased, but still, I think that he brings that to the table. The other thing is working together as a tandem. His Jupiter, which is a planet of expansion and growth and actually even rules politics, sits right on Kamala's moon. And this is considered a very favorable aspect between their two charts. It's called synastry, or we could say relationship compatibility, where as he has done, he'll just tremendously support her moon with his Jupiter. This is considered one of the more favorable aspects to have between two charts, is to have that. And they're both in a section, they're in Aries, the ram, which is connected. And actually, even in Western astrology, they're both in Aries, the ram, which is the energy of Mars, the energy of pioneering, doing, building, moving in new directions. And they're in a specific section of Aries that in Indian astrology we call Ashwini. And it's very interesting. The symbol of Ashwini are these twins that ride in a golden chariot and bring healing energy down to the earth plane. They ride in this golden chariot and bring the energy down to the earth plane. So even though maybe Kamala and Tim are not twins, maybe in this indication they are, that they're
very cool.
really wanting to bring this healing love down to the planet. So that's what gives me, a sense of faith and optimism and hope in terms of the astrology. And there's a lot of other factors, but Donald Trump, and actually the other thing is they both have really very positive moons in their chart. Tim and Kamala, as I mentioned, her moon is in this Ashwini, and his is in a section of Capricorn called Shravana, which is the star of learning. And it's also considered, as Ashwini, they're considered what they call Deva nakshatras, or goddess or godlike in their nature. Whereas Trump, his moon is in Scorpio in his Vedic chart, which is it's considered its debilitated sign. So both of his feminine planets are challenged, the moon and Venus. So again, this.
Why am I not surprised?
Really, really. Astrology should have a common sense factor involved. But the point is that Trump was also born under a lunar eclipse, which gives the energies a lot of power. But, and like I said, powerfully good is another question. So anyway, his moon is in a particular nakshatra called Jeshta, which means the chief or senior most. It just indicates a person that would not do well. In my book, I've written a book on these nakshatras, will not do well working for other people like that.
It would also make him the kind of guy that would need to be a dictator, because he really doesn't have any team building attributes.
Yeah. And Hitler's chart was very much this way as well. I won't go into that during this session, but maybe sometime I could show you the parallels between their two charts. But Donald Trump's moon is in Jeshta, is considered a Rakshasa nakshatra, which means demon. So he's got his moon in this more challenging section of Scorpio, and the moon is not happy in Scorpio. That's considered its Nietzsche, or we could say debilitated sign. So again,
it's a demonic.
Can be. It doesn't mean that everyone with their moon there will be demonic, but it. Well, good example of the moon there is Howard Hughes, and so it's interesting because there's a little bit of parallel there between these two. It's just sad how so many, like you said, with Elon Musk, and so many billionaires have come to Trump's rescue for their own.
60 of them.
Yeah, it's really crazy. And if people can't see the truth in that.
Well, I've been written a blog about it that what I see is that guys that are just interested in tax breaks, but setting up an American oligarchy, where they are little kings of their own domains, under Trump. So. And
I think that they think Trump's so stupid that he can be like a puppet where they can just do the strings and, kind of work him.
Yeah, and that never works out for rich people that try to do that with dictators. They usually wind up with a short trip out a window somewhere. Yeah. Well,
and also when history's written, I wouldn't want to be one of those people.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
different time. So, any questions you have, Ken?
Were you able to do anything with JD Vance's chart, or?
Yeah, I do have JD's. Let me see here.
I'm curious about, because I think really that Trump, they know that he's fading fast, and really they're just trying to get JD Vance in there to be the president. They'll do the 25th Amendment on Trump and take him out of power, and it will be President Vance at that point.
His Venus is at 0 degrees of Leo, and so what does that mean? When a planet's at 0 degrees or 29, it's called Sandhi. It weakens it. It makes it weak. And so again, we find this weak Venus in his chart compared to Kamala. Her Venus is in Leo, which is a very leadership sign. And Tim, as I mentioned, is in Taurus, the ruling sign. So anyway, he's got that challenge. The other thing is his moon, it's strong because it's next to a fixed star called Spica, which is a very high magnitude star. So it does give him that charisma and all that. However, his moon nakshatra is called Chitra, and it's also a Rakshasa nakshatra, his moon as well. So we find that parallel between he and Trump, again, with that weak Venus.
He's not going to be woman favorable, yeah.
he's not going to, yeah, exactly treat women with respect that they deserve. So,
Oh, he's terrible. He's actually worse than Trump in many ways. It's really quite
yeah.
remarkable. He's the one pushing the cat ladies. He's the one that's saying that only women with children should be able to vote. Just wants to have women be barefoot and pregnant. That's how he sees women.
And then for them to have no choice.
They will lose the vote under someone like that. Absolutely. He's a young guy. We're going to see him for a long time, and if Trump fails, which I believe he will, I think it's going to be a landslide for Kamala. Then we'll see JD probably as one of the 2028 Republican candidates.
I would think so. I would think so. And these aspects that I'm saying in his natal chart are there throughout his whole life. They're not going to change. They're not going to change. So.
He's very articulate, but he's not very charismatic. The thing that keeps Trump afloat, and it must be somewhere in his charts, is he's very charismatic. He can get people to believe him and go along with him. And I don't see that superpower in JD Vance.
It's not as, because see, Trump has that Leo rising in both systems and the Mars in Leo in both systems. And so Leo is the lion, and it's leadership, authority, power. And so he projects that. Plus, he has a very good Mercury, which is speech and communication. And Mercury, to me, also, it reflects his, what I call Teflon Don. Nothing sticks to that guy. He could murder someone in Manhattan and get away with it, Yeah,
he has claimed that.
And he does have a good chart for wealth, and all that. He has a very strong Mercury, which again rules his money houses, his houses of wealth. So that does produce that.
Yeah. And really with the COVID, he certainly was so insensitive to that whole murder thing you're talking about did present itself.
Yeah.
And probably would even to a greater extent. He seems to have lost a lot of his brakes, what keeps him going over the top.
And his Jupiter, which is guru planet, is retrograde, which is not necessarily a negative thing, but it could indicate a person that, how would you say it, can have some challenge with religion and things, or be more conservative or something like that, more fundamentalist. And it's with Neptune, so again, there could be that distortion around religion, because Neptune can bring that sometimes. For a person as well. So he has a strong Saturn, so that again gives him a certain amount of chutzpah and strength and his ability to pull himself out of his, his living situation as a child.
Well, you can see his life has been blessed by a tremendous amount of abundance that he hasn't had to earn. So there's something, in his field, that's pretty amazing in terms of the abundance that seems to always bail him out of situations.
Yeah, and his Mercury is in Leo, so that's a leadership sign. And again, it does give him debating skills, which he did, show against Timothy Walz. He does have that ability in terms of communication, things like that.
Yeah.
But again, I could see where there's definitely with his chart a real shadow side. But I think you're right. I don't think he's going to go away. I think he will end up running again.
So I guess that's a good way to kind of wrap up here, is to realize that no matter who wins on November 5th, we are not going to be seeing the end of this sort of brotopia.